Hello, 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 everyone. I am so pleased to be back for a very, very long overdue with my lovely, lovely friend, Lance Schuttler from Ascent Nutrition. How are you doing, Lance?
I'm doing great, Catherine. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's getting dark here. I've got a really school screen, so excuse the only pair of really ridiculous glasses I could find, everyone. But hey ho, we don't care about that because we've got some great things to come on to and chat about. And Lance, we haven't spoken for a while just because on camera, because we've just been both so busy, and you've been doing some really exciting things behind the scenes, getting some great new products for us all. I just wanted to say hello to everyone into the chat, because don't be shy today. We're doing these live so that everyone can ask questions. So please don't be shy. And we have got people from the UK, from Ontario, from London, Canada, from Northwest Iceland. I love it. I love seeing where everyone's from. It's always sunny where you are, and it's dark and cold where I am, but it's been a lovely day. So before we get really into, we're going to be talking about military secrets. We're going to be talking about spiritual protection and DNA protection. And really, let's start off, Lance, by talking in our usual YouTube code words that we're also used to and everyone's still used to. What are you feeling about where we're at today, right here, right now, sort of what's going on in your country, globally, and how positive are you feeling about things?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm very optimistic with what's taking place. Clearly, there are a lot of negative and destructive things happening. There's no doubt about that. But I think that this is part of what the process is. Clearly, this is some sort of the fallout. But we are seeing huge things happen. Just a couple weeks ago, one of the prime ministers, I believe it was Norway, she stepped down out of nowhere. And then right around that time too, the CEO of YouTube stepped down, and people will remember the day prior. Yes, exactly. So that your channel can be liberated, Catherine, because they've absolutely been, messing with it. But I think that day is coming quickly. We're still seeing the collusion that's been taking place, but it's no doubt that things are happening. When she stepped down, the YouTube CEO, the day prior, one congressman, I'll just say Jim, I'm gonna, keep it very vague because it's YouTube, but one congressman, Jim, he brought forth, some information, and basically is trying to hold some of these people accountable as it relates to big tech and information. So that was a very encouraging sign. I know people loved that. And then, thanks, Connie. And then there's also a couple things recently too. So just yesterday, we'll call him Brandon's son. He has a certain laptop. Brandon's son, his lawyer actually just stepped away from the case, basically citing nervousness and he's not confident. Yes, with what's going on.
My pom-poms, yeah.
Yes, it's so exciting. And, I know the counter argument for some people could be, well, this is just theater. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to hold these people accountable. But to me, you guys, there's no doubt the fact that these people are even being put on public display like this and being brought in for questioning publicly. There's no doubt it's happening. And we're just seeing the natural process that has to take place of, we've been through all the lies, and now all the lies are coming out, and we're seeing these people still lie through their teeth, and this is part of it. That is what psychosis and psychopaths and sociopaths do, is lie through their teeth, even up to the moment of being arrested or whatever. They will lie till the very end. And so we're seeing this. It's just waking more people up, and I do believe that the good people within military intelligence and the government will be taking action, publicly, the sort of action that we want to see, perp walks, things like that. And, it is happening, and it's very exciting. I know that you said something, Catherine, that came out as well. I didn't hear this till you just said it. If you want to share that, I think that's huge.
So I never watched mainstream news, but I was so excited when I found out sort of over the last couple of days in the UK. It's absolutely hysterical. So Matt Wancock, Hancock, but we were Matt Wancock. So he was the health secretary at the time that all this was going on, and the big V word. We stood, even though she stood down, they are still removing stuff as scrubbers, so we'll be careful for a bit longer. So what happened is he was the health secretary during all that time, 2020. And what happened is they've released in the Telegraph, one of our main newspapers, all the private WhatsApp messages between him and Boris Johnson and who was prime minister at the time, and other members of the parliament. And it's just cringy to watch. I mean, it is literally cringy. So they are obviously really gunning for Matt Wancock. They're all, the great thing is there's no honor amongst thieves. As we all know, these people turn on each other just to protect their own skin. So now our prime minister is calling for a whole investigation into how the things are handled. Now, don't get me wrong, our current prime minister, as far as I can see, never met him personally, but as far as I can see, is not someone to be trusted at all. So there's all this stuff coming up, and it's stirring up people who wouldn't normally be questioning these things when they're saying, oh my God, look at these messages. However, my word of caution to all of us is let's not let them distract us. Look over here to take away what's going here, because I'm not an expert on this, but behind the scenes, they're trying to sign a global treaty on pandemic responses, which would make every country, which is most of them, signing it, to respond in a way quicker to do all sorts of things. And we know there was the operation in New York, the virus preparedness, I can't remember what it was called. Can you, just before they released the big V, that Bill Gates and everyone was involved in. Now they've run another one, which is very apt for what we're going to be talking today about fungal infections and things. So when they do these things, these advanced preparedness by these awful groups, we do know that they've got something planned. But luckily, the more of us talk about it, the more they sort their plans. And I do think the psychopaths are panicking. I mean, let's face it, they tried to bring back the this, and then they've tried the aliens in the sky. I mean, I'm really hoping when they come, we know they're here already, but when we see them publicly, I'm hoping they're not going to be in a bloody balloon, for God's sake. It's laughable, isn't it? So, you know, when does a rattlesnake strike? When it's rattled, and they are clearly rattled. So bring it on. But I think we do all need to keep our eyes and ears and intuition, which is what we're going to talk about today, really peeled, because there will be lots going on. If they're trying to distract us this publicly, we need to be aware of what's going on behind the scenes as well, I would think.
Yes, absolutely. And another thing too, you know, on that note, there's been legislation that passed in the Senate. It was either last night or today, that they're going to now, well, it has to pass the House next, but it first passed the Senate, and the bill is to open up everything and declassify everything as it relates to, you know, the origin of, you know, what we know, and we'll just call it a lab. You all know what we're talking about, the origin of that. That just happened last night or today. And to me, that's another very exciting thing, because we have good heroes who are here in the US, I mean, everywhere, of course, but these heroes are saying the American public and the world deserves to know, where did this thing originate from and what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, fool me once, fine, fool me twice, shame on us, sort of thing. And that's why I'm so pleased that we're all still, and by all of us, including everyone in the chat, it's so great. We've got to keep up, however relentless it is talking about things, not only talking about problems, but also solutions. But of course, we don't know what solutions we need unless we're aware of what's being thrown at us. So one of the things we really wanted to talk today, which it really comes into the spiritual protection and the DNA protection, is something that's really close to my heart, because on the animal side of things, I have been using medicinal mushrooms for years and years, quite different from magic mushrooms. That's a different discussion. But Lance, I want you to tell us, because your company is at the forefront of developing these absolutely amazing products. And, you know, the reason I just love them all so much, and, you know, the algae oil that I've got here that we've spoken about so much, there's never a day when all my cats and all my dogs don't get this. And if I'm lucky, there's some left for me. But they take priority for that. They absolutely adore it. Your quality of what you source and the way you produce it is second to none, in my opinion. So tell us about, you've got some exciting new products that you've launched recently to tell my listeners about. And most importantly, how they can work on both the spiritual and physical protection side of things.
Yeah, definitely, Catherine. So I'll share this little short presentation that I've got put together, you guys. And I'll go through it quick, but it's very, very fascinating information. And it relates to 9/11 and a lot of, you know, things that weren't actually supposed to really get out. So can you see this, Catherine?
We can see that. Yeah, you might. That's it. That's even better.
Okay.
Perfect, Lance.
Awesome. So I've titled this 9/11 Mysterious Mushrooms and Spiritual Protection. So after 9/11, the U.S. Department of Defense, in conjunction with the NIH and NIAID, they have a program called Biodefense BioShield. And they were looking at different, let's just say, compounds in nature that can be harmful. You can see them on the screen. I'm not really going to speak them out loud, but it relates to birds, pigs, cows, things like that. Yeah. And they wanted to find basically counter agents to these compounds, if there were counter agents, because again, you know, you remember, and everyone who's old enough to remember that time, there was a lot of fear going around about these different, you know, things in the air and things circulating. And so it was important for the government, you know, the good people within and the military to find things that might, you know, counteract some of those harmful compounds. So they were looking at research, and what happened was there was 200,000 different samples that were submitted to this particular study. Some of them were pharmaceuticals, you know, synthetics, and others were natural compounds, and many of these were mushrooms submitted. And this is information coming from Paul Stamets. You know, he was the main mycologist and scientist who submitted these mushrooms. And what happened was he was not actually supposed to get the information back. You know, these are his words that he's spoken publicly. But something happened where, you know, divine intervention, God, whatever you want to call, you know, the higher power definitely intervened, and he actually got sent the results. Okay. And one mushroom in particular, Agaricon, and this is not to be confused with Agaricus. This is Agaricon, were extraordinarily strong and literally off the charts in terms of its activity. I wish that I could go deeper on that, but you know what I mean. It has strong biological activity, and I'll touch on some of it. But what happened then after that was fascinating. So these results came back. Paul had called the government and, you know, his contact there and said, "Hey, these are great. It's awesome results." And the guy was very serious and said, "You were not supposed to get that. Like, you know, you need to send that back in." Shortly after that, his compound was sworn by a Black Hawk helicopter. You know, very fascinating. Now, nothing bad ended up happening, but what did happen was the results could be published and were now out basically publicly because Paul had them and he could see certain things. And so what took place then is Paul Stamets submitted some patents, and you can see one of them right here, and then one article down here as well. And it did show that it was, you know, active against those things relating to cows, birds, and pigs. And also there's some compounds in there called coumarins that were very fascinating to a research institute in Chicago. Something else, just kind of given how powerful this is, it was shown to actually neutralize a toxin called neurotoxin VX. And, you know, this isn't something that we'd really come across in our everyday life, but it just shows the potential and the power of what this Agaricon is. And so clearly, you know, with people wanting to support respiratory health and lung health, and just what's been going on, this mushroom is extremely relevant and important for what's taken place. But that's really just the sort of physical properties of this. and it gets more into the spiritual side. So the Greek physician Dioscorides, he called it elixirium ad longum vitam, the elixir of long life. It's also known as quinine conch. A lot of people know about quinine and, you know, how that's supportive for our health. This mushroom, Catherine, actually grows to be the oldest living fruiting body mushroom that they currently know of, or that scientists currently know of. They can live 50 to 70 to 80 years old out in the wild. And so what happens is, because they're living so long, they themselves have to produce compounds that protect themselves from all the different contaminants out in the wild and in the forest. And so what takes place then is this conversion and this nutrient assimilation and production. And when we humans take these mushrooms in, it actually can support us in different ways. So again, this Agaricon, it's really known for respiratory health, immune system health, supporting a healthy inflammatory response, neurological health. But where it gets fascinating is the spiritual side of this. Okay. So they would actually use this as what they'd call like a spiritual medicine. And they used it to protect themselves from, you know, demons or dark entities, things like that. So the Haida people in the Pacific Northwest, in the U.S. and in Canada, have traditionally used this and use it for all these different reasons. But again, the biggest was the spiritual protective effect of it. They said that it helped to treat things caused by the spirits. So, you know, shamans would actually carve animal figures into the conchs of these mushrooms and then place them over their graves, because they believed that it would help protect them from protect them from demons in the afterlife and dark entities. It's also been shown, you know, to be a very spiritually protective mushroom in terms of women's sexual health. There's different things as it relates to sexual health of women in particular that this mushroom physically helps to support. Again, it's one of these things that I can't really code word talk about, but it's very important for young girls in particular and young women, you know, and it relates to HP, and I'll just leave the last one off of that. But it's relating to those things, and it's been, you know, really thought to help promote the survival of the human species who have been around this mushroom because of all the different contaminants that have taken place in plagues and things like that, that this mushroom may have actually helped to protect people in that regard. It's also been known to carry fire as well. So it can transport fire. Very, very interesting stuff. So what we have done, and I really call this a very, like, possibly one of the most important spiritual products or substances out there, is this Agaricon mushroom. And what we've done, Catherine, is we are growing it organically here in the US. We genetically test each strain of the species to ensure that it can grow at its maximum fullest potential, so that ultimately it has the strongest and highest amounts of these bioactive constituents in there, because that's really what we want. And so what we're doing is we grow it longer to give us a much stronger product and produce these constituents that are testing at levels, you know, when we compare it to others, at much higher percentages. And, you know, of course, I'm not ever going to put down any companies, especially any mushroom companies. You know, they're all beneficial and doing great work. We've just wanted to bring out a couple products that are going to differentiate and really be as strong as possible. So that's what we're doing. And you can easily mix it into things like yogurt, juices, smoothie, granola, cereal. You can cook with it as well. You know, so it's a very interesting, fascinating product. And it's doing very well for us already. We just launched it, and the word is definitely spreading.
It's absolutely lovely. And I do want to say to people, we'll come on and talk about it in a minute, but you can use it with your pets as well. And I know you can put it in all those different things, but I actually, because I work with self-selection a lot with herbs and things, it's really, really important. And I love literally just taking it neat. It's just delicious, folks. It's just, how can I describe it? It's almost like got a bit of cacao in there, a little bit of nutty. It's just delicious. It's just absolutely delicious. And what you'll find is, as you start taking these things, and if you work decide you want to take it neat, you'll see that as your body innately recognizes the active constituents, it will start craving it more and more. So it's completely safe to offer to your animals as well, and just very beneficial, as you say, at a time like this where we want to look at both the physical and the spiritual side of things of our health. I was so pleased when you brought this out, because it's not one that I've been able to source from anyone else. So fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. And what you said on the taste and like the feel of it, it's very important. And it's the sort of like visual or physical like evidence of what we're doing as it relates to the growing process. Okay. And
Yeah.
I'll explain this. So you've noticed, like, I know that you've tried other mushroom powders out there. This one, you can taste that it's a little bit more like dense, let's say, and not energetically, but dense physically. And that is a very good thing, because what it's doing, and the color is darker too. You've probably noticed that the color is a little bit darker than other products. And the Agaricon naturally is a little bit darker, but the lion's mane as well. If you compare that to other products, you'll see that ours is darker, and that is the result of us growing them longer and producing these, more active constituents within it.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know if people can see here, but we've got a question here about taking what neat. So I personally choose to take my powders neat. Now, my daughter adds them into her smoothies, and you can do both. But when I'm taking a lot of my medicinal products, I choose to take this because my body will know how much I need to take. It's just the way I choose to do them based on the way I work with herbs and medicinal products. But because I've worked with a lot of mushroom products before, I can absolutely tell you this is a completely different level of quality to a lot of the ones that I've had before. And when you grow them in the way and produce them in the way that you do, as you say, you're basically accentuating the amount of active constituents in there, which is really, really important. It's a really lovely product. So thank you for that question. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. And that's a good point too, overall with mushrooms. Something that I think is the most fascinating, or one of the most fascinating things or facts about mushrooms, is that we humans share 50% of our DNA in common with mushrooms and only about 10% in common with plants. And so what that means in short is that we humans have co-evolved alongside mushrooms synergistically and symbiotically, where they can support us in our different systems in the body, and we can actually support them, by taking care of nature and by taking care of the old growth forests and, cultivating mushrooms in beneficial ways. The mushrooms clean up the planet. They clean up toxic waste. They clean up heavy metals, pesticides in the environment.
Absolutely.
They clean up a lot of other things. And so this is, an important concept within mushrooms, is that it's very important the environment in which they're grown, because they are like sponges, and they'll, really absorb everything around it. And so that's why we're using organic brown rice to grow these cultures on. The Agaricon, it's just the mycelium powder, because you can't really ethically use the conchs, because again, they're growing 50 to 70 years old. We would never want to wild harvest those. So we just culture them and produce the mycelium powdered extract. And that's actually where the most the beneficial compounds are in the mycelium for the Agaricon. The lion's mane, we're doing a mycelium and a fruiting body extract with it. But as it relates to us humans and how it's beneficial, again, like, we're sharing 50% of our DNA in common with them.
Yeah.
And there's also, this awareness out there that's true that, some fungi are not beneficial for us, but it's also true that there are fungi that are beneficial for us. So, it's not just to say that all mushrooms are good or all mushrooms are bad. It absolutely depends on the strain and the species being used, the way they're grown, the way they're administered, everything else that a person or an animal is doing, in their life as it relates to nutrition, diet, mindset. All that stuff clearly plays a role. But we know that there are certain functional mushrooms out there that really do support our health in really incredible ways. And it's very well documented, and done by people that don't have an agenda to spin things, but just showing the real good science with it.
I've been studying mushrooms for a long, long while with my work that I've been doing for years as a holistic therapist for animals and humans. And you are so right. And I think this is where there's a lot of misunderstanding is people, first of all, confuse food with medicine. So when we're looking at these type of mushrooms, we're not talking about the type of thing that you would consume as a foodstuff. We're using them for a very particular use to provide direct benefits to the body. And like anything, you know, it's like you can look at clays. You've got some very beneficial clays and you've got a lot of clays that can carry a lot of toxins. So knowing your source is absolutely key. And that's why I really trust yours. Got a really good question here from Nicole about how would you dose a 4-pound Yorkie? She understands it's not medical advice. So there's 2 ways you can do that, Nicole. So first and foremost, you could put a little bit on your finger and let your Yorkie lick it off. And if they try to do that, or a little bit on a bowl separately to their food, because what happens is animals are very good at self-medicating themselves. So if they choose it like that, it's completely safe. If they're choosing it separate from food, it's safe to let your dog or cat or horse select as much as they want. But if you're wanting it to add to the food for a 4-pound Yorkie, I'd just put a little pinch in there. Just a little pinch is absolutely fine. And that will be enough to absolutely do what it needs to do. So you can do both like that. But it's really great to start giving your animals some choice in this, because when they realize that they're being able to take some control back over their health, they really thank you for it. So what about the Lion's Mane product? Because you've got a new Lion's Mane product as well, which a lot of people would have heard of Lion's Mane. Absolutely so much to say on this. I mean, we could do 2-3 hours on this easily and not run out of information.
Definitely. So I've got an actual lion's mane mushroom here that I'm going to hold up so you can see this.
Amazing,
this is the fruiting body. You can eat this. These ones taste good. You know, some of the mushrooms you definitely don't want to consume like that, but the lion's mane is wonderful. And yes, just like you're doing, it literally tastes like seafood. If someone's into seafood, it sort of has like this oyster. If you're cooking it, the powder isn't going to taste necessarily like the seafood, but if you're cooking the actual mushroom, it will.
Powder tastes like quite chocolatey.
Yes. And that's like, again, you'll notice the taste difference in these as compared to others. So I'll share this real quick as well, Catherine, on the lion's mane and what's going on with this. So lion's mane, a lot of people know it. It's called Hericium erinaceus. This was reserved back, hundreds, thousands of years ago, only for the royalty throughout Asia because of the exquisite taste and the neurological benefits. Now, monks have also used it for hundreds or thousands of years to support them in their meditation, the strengthening of their nervous system. There's a phrase around lion's mane that's commonly known as giving a person memory of a lion and nerves of steel. And the reason it's got that name is because of what it's doing and how it looks. Okay, so it's
just
all
beautiful, isn't it?
Yes, it's so beautiful. So they call it the brain mushroom as well. And if you think about the doctrine of signatures, which is this sort of like law in nature that often different foods and substances found within the wild will look like the organs or the different benefits that they'll give as it relates to the human body and our anatomy and physiology. And so you look at this mushroom and it sort of looks like a brain in a way where it's got the shaggy spines and the string-like connections, through the dendrites and the axons. And how this functions then in us as humans is it will help support these neuronal connections, the synapses and the axons connecting, and it supports the myelin sheath, which is like the electrical insulation that wraps around all nerves and neurons to transmit this electrical movement across neurons and throughout the brain and the whole body. So what this is actually doing is creating a process or stimulating a process called neurogenesis. And there's a couple compounds within the lion's mane, hericinones and erinacines, that they can cross the blood-brain barrier. And then it tells the body to upregulate or produce more of a few very important compounds. One is nerve growth factor, NGF. One is BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and then SYP, which is synaptophysin. Okay, and all these are neuropeptides that are responsible for promoting healthy nervous system functioning, communication across the brain and nervous system, the structure of the nerves themselves, because these compounds actually help to support the growth of neurons. So you can see right here, you have a neuron at day 3, and then as time progresses, what should be happening with a healthy neuron is that it starts growing and developing, and it sort of looks like a tree with branches and axons and dendrites. And that's the actual process of neurogenesis, where neurons are regenerating or they're creating entirely new ones. And so lion's mane has this amazing capability to support the brain in this way, and other ways too. There was actually just a study that came out just a little over a month ago in the Journal of Neurochemistry, and they studied lion's mane specifically. And what they found was that in this particular study, neurons were actually able to double their growth in the outgrowth of the axons and the neurite branching. And so, the sort of like layman response in the media was, not lion's mane may help promote double neuronal growth. And that in turn may support healthy memory, cognitive functioning, recall, things like that. And one of the specific compounds that was studied was the heracerin A. So that took place, very fascinating. And again, we're doing it organically here in the US. We test on this one as well to make sure that we're growing it in the best possible way to maximize the active constituents and really just support people and animals in all the ways that it does. Again, memory, healthy memory, recall, focus, clarity, gut health, immune system health, and there's even more benefits to it. But that's the overall on the lion's mane specifically. This was something that I've been using for about 12 years now, Catherine, and it was one of the first, it was actually the first really sort of like nootropic or brain enhancing compound or mushroom or herb, whatever in that category that I came across. And I started using it and really feeling the effects and feeling the benefits. And so I've been passionate about lion's mane for 12 years and using it often throughout this time. I mean, most of the time throughout these past 12 years. And it's just something I've really encouraged a lot of people to look into, suggested it for the brain and nervous system. And really just, it's one of those mushrooms that we can benefit from them in several different ways.
This has been one of my favorite for years. And again, I can honestly, hand on heart say that the quality of yours is just exceptional. And the reason, just for humans and animals, so many people at the moment are really looking to tune into their intuition. It's the thing that's coming up for all of us time. If there's any lessons that have been learned for over the last few years, we have to go within ourselves and trust. And these products will really, really help you to do that, because it's all about the connection. It's connection both internally. We have to get those connections working well. And then obviously externally with whether you want to call it the divine matrix or however you want to think of it. But when we are all connected telepathically to everything, but we've got to almost relearn, and these products can really help us. And nature always has the answers. It's amazing. I love it, Lance. Now we've got a really good question here from Layla. When are they going to be able to get it in Norway?
They should be able to get it. We are shipping to most of the EU. Some of the countries have very specific regulations, so I don't want to say 100% sure that we're good for Norway. We should be. And sometimes things change. And so, we've got every country on that we're able to. We have done a lot of work to get this to this point. I know a lot of people remember just a handful of months ago, we weren't even able to do this, but we shipped to Canada, most of the EU and the UK, and definitely the UK.
Yeah.
And many, many countries. There are a few obscure ones that we can't ship to, but most of them we do. So, Layla, please just try it. And it should be able to go through for the mushrooms and everything else that we've got on the store.
Fantastic. So the next one, and it is really frustrating. I understand for everyone who's in countries where we have troubles shipping some of this stuff to. I feel your pain, but unfortunately, the problem isn't with Ascent Nutrition or the other companies. It's with the actual country and their customs. And but we can all manifest that this can get better. So, great question here. What about using it for children?
Yes, in general. So, I mean, of course, just for, I mean, obviously, what we have to say is, you know, especially for children, you know, talk to your doctor. But I mean, these things are safe. Again, we as humans share more of our DNA in common with these than plants. You know, I've said this 3 times now, and again, it's just something that it's so symbiotic with us that for most people they're safe. You know, some people are allergic to mushrooms. That's understandable. Some people, you know, just might not like them, but definitely they're safe. They're fine. They're not psychedelic. They're not gonna, you know, give you like a caffeine sort of buzz. There's no like stimulant with it. It's just a healthy a healthy functioning of the brain and nervous system that can result by taking lion's mane, you know, on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, you're so in tune. Anyone who's watching this is going to be very in tune with their children. So, you know, the great thing is to let them try it. Unfortunately, whether we're talking about pets or children, the regulations are very strict on what we're allowed to say. But when people sort of understand and educate themselves like these listeners do, on the products, then you can see just how safe these things are, and not only just how safe but how beneficial. Because one of the things I love, and I've seen a lot of different talks, Lance, talking about, you know, the downside of, you know, like the next pandemic that they're going to be spreading is going to be fungi related. But remember, we're talking about a huge spectrum. So a man-made sort of version of that that's been made as a, I can't even say it, but a bio and then the W name, is completely different to what nature has provided us for goodness knows how many years, a lot more years than they've told us we've been on the planet, to work symbiotically with us, to be using. And I love the fact that you're ethically sourcing them and being very careful how you harvest them. We've got a question here about the hemp going to Canada. Any news on that?
No, it's Canada. We've tried. Canada will not let us ship it there. It's completely with the regulations of the Canadian government. We've done everything that we can to do it. They just simply don't allow it. But we ship all of our other products to Canada, the mushrooms included. So yeah, it's most of them we can get out there.
Yeah. A question here from Catkins. Thank you for your question. I'm sorry to hear that. Have you got any experience of lion's mane for nerve regeneration?
You know, so when I started using lion's mane, I'll speak from my experience and I'll speak as I've helped many people with this on the lion's mane in particular. So I had a concussion back around the time I first started using it, and I started really dosing up heavy on the lion's mane. It repaired very quickly. Now, was it only because of the lion's mane? Like, I can't say that or prove that. You know, it's very hard to say. Many other compounds do support the brain. You know, we need, like the algae, like those omegas, we have to get those in the diet. That can help support regeneration of nerves. But lion's mane, definitely. I used it after a concussion. I knew that my brain was definitely impacted, and I used it pretty heavily for many, many months. And again, you know, I've used it on and off for the past 12 years very consistently. So yes, but then also when I was doing health coaching, I often recommended this to people for, you know, nervous system health, brain health, sort of, you know, what Catkins is talking about. And what I can say is, yes, the lion's mane does support the nervous system functioning and sort of what we talked about with that process of neurogenesis. A couple other things that I would look into is the algae oil DHA that we have. And again, I'm not even just saying this just because we sell it. I'll actually recommend another company for a different product, which is a R-lipoic acid. I would combine if I was in this situation, I would combine the lion's mane, the algae oil DHA, and then a R-lipoic acid from a company called, I'm sorry, it's literally just blanked out of my mind right now.
Don't worry, we can come back to it when you've got it. Yeah, I do think it's great advice.
Yeah. So, okay, it's actually called bioenhanced R-lipoic acid. You can look it up and you can find it. Geranova Labs is the company. That's what it is. Geranova Labs R-lipoic acid. It's the best lipoic acid in the world. Excuse me. I would combine those three if it was myself, and if I was in that situation.
And I would add Catkins, the Asea. I don't know if you've seen the testimonials from the lovely Danielle Matthews that I've had on my site, but my email address is below, or Andrea will very kindly put it in the chat. Thank you, Andrea, because I've had a lot of experience with brain injuries, and that the redox molecules will make everything else work better. So fantastic. Now, JP, sorry, my bad. There is no cacao or chocolate flavor added to the product. What I was saying is how it tastes to me, and how these products, it's a different subject already. So this is completely pure. It's not got any flavors added to it at all. It's just completely the pure product for both of them. So you do not have to worry at all. How the product tastes to you will completely depend on what your body needs from it. So these compounds are very, very complex, and we've got loads of active ingredients in it, in each of the products. But there's nothing else added, so 100% safe. You don't need to worry about that. So
yeah,
great.
And I confirm what Catherine said. There is no chocolate or cacao in it. It just has that sort of like cacao nutty taste, which is, very, very, tasty and interesting.
Yeah, and there's a reason why certain things that grow in nature, that our taste buds have evolved to select and like those, because it's basically telling us that it's safe and our body needs it. Similar thing here, I think, from Andrew about someone who had a stroke. I would say that the advice that you said for the other lady with the nerve repair would very much apply, but I would definitely be using lion's mane in that case.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll say that I'd honestly rather address this one specifically off camera. But what Catherine said, I'm in agreement with.
So Andrea, feel free I will give you Lance's email and contact details, and we can address that off camera as well, just because of what we're legally allowed to say for medical conditions. Let's have a look. What else have we got here? Seeing if there's any other questions. When our worlds won't need supplements anymore and money. But the thing is, no other planet needs it. Well, these supplements are in nature all the time. And if we were living more naturally, we would be naturally foraging for them. So actually, when you look at most animals, so a typical horse, for example, would eat up to 70 different species in a week, and our dogs and cats and humans would do similarly. But what we've been so used to living in modern society, where we don't go out and forage anymore. So these active constituents, yes, we wouldn't have to buy them because we'd be going out and foraging for them, but you could go out and forage for them yourself if you knew what you were looking for. So, yeah. Okay. Any other questions that we're seeing there, Lance, that you want to highlight?
A lot of people are talking about the brain and being addicted to things. Again, a lot of this stuff, like, I wish you guys, I could speak openly and freely and I'd tell you everything. But what I can just say is we know that lion's mane supports healthy cognitive functioning and the actual structure and functioning of neurons and the brain and the communication between the neurons. So, we do know that lion's mane supports the brain health in many different ways, and it's just a good overall healthy mushroom.
Yeah. I'm really sorry, American Patriot. This isn't something that I've personally got any experience of. Now, obviously, we're not making any medical claims in this at all. We're looking at nutrient supplements, but have you got any experience of this at all, Lance? It's sort of out of my area of expertise, I'm afraid.
I don't. But what I would say is, again, like the addiction, it's a process happening in the brain, because it's, you know, we're addicted to certain chemicals and neurochemicals, and you know, especially dopamine. So I don't have any experience with it. Again, we do know that the algae oil, because of the omegas, and the lion's mane, and the agarikon, also for neurological health support. These compounds just support the health and the structure and function of the neurons in the brain. And, you know, people can also look these things up specifically with, you know, the words that they're using, and you can find good information out there. Again, a lot of it is, we just can't specifically talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone who's asking about, you know, the anything to do with the brain health, etc., the advice, feel free to go back and listen to the advice that Lance has given, because all 4 of those supplements will be really, really helpful to it. So it's so frustrating, but hopefully there'll be more changes coming in the near future where we can honestly and openly share all this information. And that is why I know some people ask about specific consults and things. And that's why a lot of us natural therapists have to do something on the consult side of things, because the rules and regulations are very different if you're working one-on-one with a client about what you're allowed to say to the general public, because obviously for safety reasons. Hi, Alpa. She's in the chat. So yes, I do agree, Dawn. All the medicinal mushrooms do help with addiction. So what we're looking at with a lot of these natural supplements is to put the body back into balance, because our bodies are amazing at healing themselves. But unfortunately, we all know in the current world, there's a lot of physical challenges, stress challenges, toxicity, brainwashing, you name it, that's really working very, very hard to push us out of balance and disconnect us with our intuition. And, you know, we have all got the innate ability to go out and forage for what we need, but that's been sort of knocked out of us over the years. Our animals very much can still do it, unless we get them addicted to fake products. That's a different matter. So what we're doing with a lot of these things, which is why I love your products so much, the more we put natural products back into our bodies, the more of these abilities open up. Trust me, I've been working with this for years and years and years, and I shouldn't ever say trust me to people, but absolutely, it really does. So Lance, lots of love for you in there. So please don't be rude in the chat about any other channels though, because we respect all the channels here. Any other questions or anything else that you want to cover, Lance? Because I'm so grateful that you've brought these out, because I know how much work goes on behind the scenes to actually get these products to market. Because trust me, folks, there's a lot of people that try and stop these natural products coming to market. So you've worked really, really hard to get those.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. This was a project years in the making, and the last 2 months was actually the hardest climb up the hill. There was a lot of wrenches thrown at us at the end, but we got them out, and it's great. So, hey, Ocean. So a question, your question, I would say for immunity, the Agaricon.
Yeah.
Both are going to support immunity, but especially the Agaricon.
The Agaricon is absolutely phenomenal. And I think anyone, I mean, we're so lucky, Lance, because people that listen to us are very, very well informed, and they are people that do their own research. But there's a very good reason why some of these products, they've worked very, very hard to stop them being available. And the Agaricon is one of those. It's phenomenal. So I would definitely do for that. I'm loving the positivity in the chat in terms of how many people have been on their own healing journeys and are sharing information. So thank you for that. This is what it's all about. And thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, absolutely, Harry. Anything to boost our own endorphin production, exercise, laughter, good food, good company. Lance and I talk a lot about that in our podcast series that we did on health and happiness with our friend Timo Tastahar, the holistic vet. So there's some great advice in that. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I think, you know, we talk a lot sort of off, because this is these products are so important. And Lance and I are really, like all of you, very carefully, following the events that are going on in the wider world, not from a place of bringing us into fear, from a place of knowledge is power. And when we know what we need to protect ourselves from, we're able to keep one step ahead of the game. So thank you so much, Lance. I'm sure we'll be back again soon. Please do like and share this, folks, if you like it, if it finds it useful. Lance and I will keep an eye on the comments. So if there's things we can, but if it's a specific medical question, we're not allowed to put the comments in YouTube. So you might be better off emailing me for that, and I can get Lance's advance. Thank you so much, Lance, and we will be back very soon. Thank you so much, everyone who's joined us, and thank you, Andrew, as always, for being in the chat and sharing all the links. There is a 10% off code, so in the links below, and I'll pin it later, with code CE10, you can get 10% off any of the Ascent Nutrition products, so feel free to use that as many times as you like. Thank you, Lance.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, everyone.